It's like a shark, NATO, except with poop.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerate it. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
There's insanity in the control room.
Everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation in here, Waldorf with you. All right, so hey, welcome to the show. Please like and share if you haven't already. Helps us out. We got a full news day. A lot of stuff we're going to talk about. You can tell by the title. We have got, of course, more COVID regrets. Shocker. We have Mark Levin already floating impeachment. If you don't know who Mark Levin is, I think you're in for a treat. Because you're going to love how ridiculous this guy is. We got Central Park Karen. She's back. She is back. Has she learned a lesson? We got Cori Bush and the McCloskeys. She reacts to the McCloskey pardon. That's some fun stuff as well. And then, of course, we are going to talk about how apparently leftists hate your baby. Such a ridiculous story. You're going to absolutely love it. You're going to love it. All right, so we got a fun show planned, as always, as usual. So please, super chats. I'd love to read them. Love to read your comments, of course. Thank you, by the way, Madi Darmo for subscribing with Prime. That's one way you can help us on Twitch, is to give us a basis bucks. So please clap for that. Hold.
Please clap.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And again, that's a way to help us out. There's also like there's all sorts of super stuff on YouTube that you can do to, the super stickers and super chats and all that stuff. So again, all of that goes to help the show. All right. You know what? This is funny. I have not seen this video yet. But it's Fox News. It's apparently Brian Kilmeade versus Steve Ducey on vaccines. Hold on, let me pull this up because I don't normally do this. But here, let's go to that. We got Fox News. I just want to do a little React Andy on this one.
I also saw that in Arkansas, apparently about 20% of the people who are in hospitals with coronavirus, 20% of them are children. So that's one of the things they're obviously going to be talking about. There are a lot of kids under 12 cannot currently be vaccinated, but if your kids are over 12, you probably ought to get the shot.
Yeah, right. Or see a doctor decide what you want to do. That's what usually people go to for medical advice, doctors.
I didn't go to a doctor before I got the shot.
Well, that's your decision.
Your Absolutely.
That's your decision. But I don't think anchors should be recommending medical advice.
Yeah.
Well, but a lot of people have been tuning into the show for 25 years to see what we think about different things. I think if you have the opportunity, get the shot.
Okay. Let's look at the irony about this entire thing. Here you've got Brian Kilmeade saying, "Wait, you shouldn't just listen to people on TV or to get medical advice. What's wrong with you?" Dude, what the fuck? Isn't that what you have been literally doing for this entire thing? The entire pandemic. Like, oh, I don't know about this. There could be some dangers with these vaccines. Masks. I don't know. The science. Ridiculous. Weirdly enough, here I am, and here is Fox, like Steve Doocy, literally being the voice of reason. What in the ever-living fuck is this? Yeah, at least Fox is encouraging vaccinations. Well, they're doing so because they don't want to get in trouble for vaccine misinformation. They rely, and they're not just on cable TV. They're also on YouTube. They're also on Facebook and all that. And so understand they get a ton of revenue from all those different sources. So if they do vaccine misinformation, blatant misinformation now, they're going to get demonetized. That's what I think. I don't know for sure, but I know that they're all vaccinated. And of course, Kilmeade says, well, you should go to your doctor. Well, yeah, you should go to your doctor. What is your doctor going to say? 9 times out of 10, your doctor's going to, and it's sad that it's only 9 times out of 10. It should be 10 out of 10. But of course, you have issues where some people, are not able to get the vaccine for one or another reason. Of course, that's why it's more imperative that everybody else gets the vaccine as well. Build up the herd immunity. They go over, 70% of people inoculated to protect the ones who can't get vaccinated, of course. But they're going to tell you, get your vaccine. Get your vaccine. Yeah. So, hey, this is going to come to blows. They've been going at it for quite some time over the vaccines, with Kilmeade representing the dumb, stupid people. And ironically, Steve Doocy's actually saying, oh, you should probably get your vaccine. Weird how it works out. Weird. All right. Fun. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Danger Ranger. I appreciate that. Much love to you as well. All right. So we're gonna start the show in earnest. And of course, this is related, as always. All right. Travis Campbell believed that he was invincible, that COVID-19 was kind of hyped up by the media, wasn't really all that bad. Hey, I'm not going to get it, and if I do, that's okay. I'm young, I'm relatively healthy. I don't need a vaccine. I'm going to be fine. Well, unfortunately, he's not fine. And he's decided to change his tune, not only after getting COVID-19, but of course, getting disastrously ill from the virus. And look, the guy's not doing well. He's not doing well at all. And they've even talked about he and his family making funeral arrangements. Here he is talking to CNN about his experience with COVID-19.
Last night, my wife and I had to make a decision if I was going to allow them to put me on a ventilator. Worst case scenario. And I don't want to be on one, but I want to live. Made it through the night. It was a long one. Last night I come to the realization that the chances of me not being able to give my daughter away at her wedding was greater than walking out. I had to make a phone call to my 14-year-old son. And I had to tell him what I thought my dream was of giving my daughter away at the altar. And I had to ask for his permission that if I didn't come home, that he would give my daughter away on her day. I messed up big time, guys. I didn't get the vaccine. That's okay. I made a mistake. I admit it. And I'm taking my responsibilities now. So please, for the love of God, if you really want to have a chance, don't fall numb to all the TV, Roderick, and social media. Just protect yourself.
So, for me, look, that's hard to watch. That's really difficult to watch, especially knowing what I know, and that's why it's important to show it to you all, right? Because some of you, I mean, my core audience, like you all know, you've been watching for a long time, but on the off chance that I get like somebody who's more conservative or whatever, doesn't pay attention to cable news, whatever, or is vaccine hesitant, that's why it's important to watch these stories, because it's absolutely heartbreaking and unnecessary. Because here we have another day, another person who was disastrously ill because they thought, well, COVID's not going to come for me. Well, the Delta variant disagrees. It's not only incredibly infectious, but if you're not vaccinated, like that man was, it's way more dangerous, it's way more deadly. Now, it's also important to note that the rhetoric and the TV that he mentioned is concentrated mainly among the right side of the political spectrum. Look, there are a couple places on the left that have some, look, leftists had an anti-vaccine movement. I've called them out before on it. I think that's ridiculous. But a lot of this anti-vaccine rhetoric also festers on the right, and that's some of the most dangerous stuff, okay, that we have. And so, people like Charlie Kirk, for example. Now, Charlie Kirk recently had a debate with Vosh, right? And he admitted during that debate, I'm not vaccinated. I don't plan to be vaccinated. And I don't recommend that people my age, he's 27 years old, get vaccinated. Now, that's ridiculous. And then, of course, you have Candace Owens. Candace Owens made a recent tweet. She said, Lambda variant is so much easier to say than we lied that vaccines don't work. She tweeted that out earlier today. First off, the vaccine does work. Breakthrough infections have always happened in every vaccine, but they happen to be incredibly low. Well, let me give you the numbers on that. According to the CDC, breakthrough infections occur at about 0.098% of the time. Nobody ever said that if you got the vaccine that it's invincibility juice. It's not. And however, if you do get the vaccine and you end up with one of those breakthrough cases, well, guess what? That actually prevents you from getting seriously ill and ending up in the hospital, ending up on a ventilator like this gentleman did, like Mr. Campbell, okay? So get your vaccine because you're way less likely to get seriously ill. And so that's why it's important, more important than ever, to get the vaccine in order to stop that and to stop some of the variants, the lambda, as I said. those other variants from popping up, spreading, and evolving. Now, of course, Candace Owens doesn't believe in evolution. She doesn't understand how it works. Well, actually, no, I take that back. She does understand how it works. But she is paid to spew nonsense from very large conservative donors. But Campbell isn't the only one, of course, to fall for their bullshit. The Daily Beast reports that a GOP official from Texas, who regularly espoused anti-vax and anti-mask views online, has, unsurprisingly, died from COVID-19. That is 5 days after posting memes on Facebook questioning the wisdom of being vaccinated. This is Dickinson City Council member and State Republican Executive Committee member H. Scott Apley, 45-year-old, who died in a local hospital about 3 a.m. on Wednesday morning, according to a GoFundMe page set up to help Apley's family with expenses. And let me just note that if we had a universal healthcare system, Medicare for all, single payer, we wouldn't leave families with medical bills like that to have to do fundraisers. Just a little note there. But he was admitted to the facility in Galveston on Sunday with pneumonia-like symptoms and was hooked up to a ventilator as his condition worsened. His wife was also infected, according to his family. Apley describes himself as a staunch conservative and a devout Christian. Neither of those things should be, exclusive to being vaccinated. You can be all of those things. You could be a conservative, you can be a Christian, and you can also believe in vaccinations. You know why? Because they actually work. And there's empirical evidence to show that it works. But in May, Apley had posted an invitation for a mask burning being held at a bar in Cincinnati, commenting, "I wish I lived in the area." Wonderful. A couple of weeks earlier, he posted a news article about giveaways and incentives meant to encourage people to get vaccinated, writing, quote, "disgusting." Wonderful. Apley also railed against so-called vaccine passports, which have existed for a very, very long time. By the way, vaccine passports have existed when you wanted to travel beforehand, and also if you wanted to go to school, you had to get your vaccines, and you had to prove that you had gotten vaccines, and all of that. Now, recently, he also suggested that mask mandates in Germany were akin to quote-unquote Nazism. Yeah. And when former Baltimore Health Commissioner Leanna Wen celebrated good news this spring about the Pfizer vaccine's efficacy, he seemingly outraged Apley, called her a, quote, absolute enemy of a free people. Now he's dead. Ain't no freedom there. But the trail of destruction of this rhetoric, from this rhetoric, does not end there. In Nashville, a right-wing radio host who repeatedly spread misinformation about the virus and mocked the vaccine is now hospitalized as he fights for his life. A Brooklyn woman who called COVID a fraud died after rejecting the vaccine in favor of natural supplements like zinc and vitamin D. The family of a Florida woman who refused the COVID vaccine died in June, refuses to still get the vaccine. A Florida track coach who has resisted calls by friends and colleagues to get vaccinated actually agreed to get the vaccine and got sick with COVID just a couple of days before he was actually scheduled to get the first dose. He ended up dying in the hospital after slipping into a coma, leaving behind a wife and 4 kids. And on, and on, and on, and on it goes. And it gets worse. The United States officially has passed over 614,000 deaths from COVID-19. But in reality, it's very likely that that number is much higher. Remember the conspiracy theory early on during the pandemic, when the right would claim that, they're just pumping up the death numbers. I mean, somebody gets into a car accident or whatever, and they write the cause of death is COVID-19. Well, it turns out that's actually the opposite of what happened, at least in a small county in Missouri. The Washington Post reports that this Macon County this small county, as I said, kind of about 15,000 people. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not really going to add much, but this is indicative of a story that might be happening all over the country. Apparently, they had undercounted the number of fatalities caused by COVID after a coroner agreed to remove COVID-19 as a cause of death from some death certificates upon being asked by the families of the deceased. Now, again, this represents a very, very small amount of cases, but according to the Kansas City Star, which first broke news of the story, said the figure was about a half dozen or more. So again, and when it comes to the death toll in this country, very, very small amount. In Macon, some requests came from people who wanted to avoid being reminded of how they could not see their family members before their deaths because of restrictions. He said a lot of families were upset. They didn't want COVID on the death certificates. This is the county coroner, Brian Hayes, told the Star. I don't necessarily buy that. That seems like a weird request. I don't want to be reminded what they died of COVID. Or maybe you didn't believe that it was COVID. Again, because of that conspiracy. Hayes is a Republican elected official and is also a partner at a local funeral home. Said he obliged the request to alter or omit COVID as the cause of death only when he said that there was a factual alternative that could be listed. He said, "I won't lie for them. It's got to be true, but I do what pleases the family." Now again, small town in Kansas, conservative, not so interested in putting COVID as the cause of death. Jared Hedges, a medical professional at the University of Hawaii in Manoa, wrote in an email that it was understandable for families to want to keep the cause of death private, but coroners should report both the presence of a coronavirus infection and any associated underlying disease under the cause of death. He said, as it could help persuade those with pre-existing conditions to get vaccinated. Quote, although some deaths are uniquely related to COVID, many, many more are where COVID has pushed those with pre-existing conditions into a literal death spiral. Now, if this happened in Macon, is it really a stretch that it could conceivably happen in other places? I don't know. But it certainly is possible. We could be several thousand to even hundreds of thousands off from the actual count. And that's not just me saying this. Back in May, the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington said the actual number of deaths in the United States caused by the pandemic could actually be over 900,000, higher than the roughly 580,000 deaths logged at the time. So think about that. I mean, we don't know. Again, we don't know the exact number, but it seems like it's very, very likely that it could be higher, much higher. All this is to say, it doesn't have to be this way. People don't have to continue dying as a result of COVID-19 at the numbers that they are today. This is a disease of the unvaccinated. There is only one way, one surefire way to guarantee that you and your family remain safe. And that is to, of course, go and get your vaccine. All right. Moving on. Go to Mark Levin. This is something a little less dark. Very dark show right now. Human potato. Love it. All right. Conservative radio host and semi-sentient potato Mark Levin says Republicans should impeach Joe Biden immediately.
The dumbest man to ever serve in the Senate, the dumbest man to ever be vice president, is now the dumbest man to ever be president. He's got a massive ego. He's a narcissist. He wants to go down in history as the greatest president. He's going to go down in history as the greatest disaster. He's doing more to weaken this country than the communist Chinese could ever pray to do. He could ever pray to do. And moreover, he's just defied a federal statute, a Supreme Court decision. He knows that the CDC doesn't have the power to extend these moratoriums on rent. He says, we're going to do it anyway, because he listens to this Harvard emeritus professor, Lawrence Tribe. He's just violated the federal Constitution. Now, let me say this. I brought this up on my radio show last week. Republicans, have you ever heard of the word impeachment? Are you guys going to go down to the border and whine yourselves to death? I know you're not in the majority, but you need to start explaining to the American people. This man just violated a Supreme Court decision. This man is the border wide open in violation of our immigration laws. I mean, you impeach Donald Trump when he's out of office because of a letter. You set up a phony incitement insurrection. This man is doing enormous damage to this country.
Look, I can't even get mad listening to this guy. It's both entertaining and hilarious because of how utterly wrong he is. There's so much projection. Again, the dumbest man to have ever taken office. He's so stupid. What a narcissist. He's going to go down as the worst president ever. For a minute there, I thought you were like talking about Donald Trump. Projection, everybody. It's projection. And by the way, speaking of projection, this guy screams narcissist at Joe Biden while literally being surrounded by his own promotional materials, which is funny. But come on, man. Come on. To be fair, to an extent, almost everybody in politics or on TV is somewhat of a narcissist. You know, there's people that really love to listen to the sound of their own voice. For me, I hate mine, but whatever. But it's a ridiculous point. Like, okay, man, dude. All right. That said, let's get to the meat. All right, to go with this potato. We're gonna impeach Joe Biden. What are we gonna impeach him for? Like, you gotta have a reason, right? Well, he mentions a couple of things. Well, for one, having the CDC eviction moratorium, right? So now this is happening at a time when COVID cases are spiking in several hotspots across the country, and hospitals are filling up with the unvaccinated, and where you had relief money that was set up to make sure that people could be able to pay their back rent that has barely been released to the public. Just over $3 million out of the 25 first tranche of aid, out of the $47 billion total for rent relief, have been released. Come on. Almost nobody's gotten that relief money. Of course you need the moratorium. It seems really dumb, especially as, again, hospitals are filling up with the unvaccinated as well. But what about the border? The border. Okay, well, let me tell you this. Joe Biden has literally been fast-tracking deportations. This is according to Politico. The Biden administration has continued to use the public health order known as Title 42, which was invoked by former President Donald Trump at the start of the pandemic to expel migrants without allowing them to seek asylum. Biden has declined to use Title 42 to deport minors crossing into the U.S., but of course is going after everyone else. The administration was expected to start phasing it out in the summer, beginning with allowing migrant families to seek asylum, but as the U.S. enters the next uncertain phase of the pandemic and returns to mitigation measures such as masks, the administration has delayed lifting the restrictions. Now, look, a lot of progressives, Democrats, we're not happy with Biden for extending that Trump order, okay? We're not happy about the deportations. We want the deportations to stop. The groups say that there is a way to mitigate risk from people coming into the country, undocumented migrants, who could have COVID. And that is, of course, making sure you test and isolate them to prevent the spread of the virus. That is a much more humane policy than just expediting and sending people back. Okay? But understand, with Republicans, it's about the inhumanity of certain groups. People who are not born in America. Their cruelty is the point. And unironically, or I should say ironically, Levin is complaining that Biden is not using the Trump-era policy enough, even though he is expediting the process. That's ridiculous. Guys, they live in a different reality. They really do. Mark Levin, understand Mark Levin is not a serious person. Impeachment for what? Impeachment for what? Besides, okay, super, super long shot, not even in the realm of consideration, but say somehow you're able to, because impeachment is such a goddamn high bar. I shouldn't even be entertaining this nonsense. And even Mark Levin's like, yeah, it's never going to happen. But you should do it anyway. Yeah, to make a political spectacle. All right, whatever. But hey, you want President Harris? That's how you get President Kamala Harris. And I'm sure, by the way, that she would be absolutely thrilled. But it's ridiculous. No, this is to make a political point and to try to get revenge for what they did to Donald Trump and kissing Trump's ass. Because Levin, understand that Levin is not a real person. He's a character. He's a character. He's not a real person. He's a Rush Limbaugh clone, essentially. Understand that this is just this is conservative talk radio. This is what it is. Doing unhinged screeds at a shrinking audience of diehard chuds who only thrive off rage bait. No reality at all. All right. Ugh. Oh God, yeah, President Nancy Pelosi. You want Nancy Pelosi as president? Unhinged, ridiculous. Okay. Anyway, they try to impeach everybody. Oh. Go to Central Park, Karen. The saga of Central Park Karen continues. Yes, just when we thought it was over, here she comes, back again. In a Tuesday's episode of Honestly, a podcast by former New York Times writer and serial whiner Barry Weiss, the woman Amy Cooper, known as Central Park Karen, said she had no other choice than to call 911 when the birdwatcher, Christian Cooper, of no relation, offered her dog a treat after he had asked her to keep the dog on a leash. So, hey, here, leash your dog so that it doesn't come up to strangers for treat. Okay, all right. And so now, here's what she told Weiss here, podcaster Camille Foster, quote, "He's holding these dog treats in one hand and a bike helmet in the other hand. And I'm thinking, oh my God, is this guy going to lure my dog over and try to hit him with his bike helmet? And if I end up over there, am I going to get hit by this bike helmet?" What? My God, she is really leaning into some of those assumptions. What makes you think, possibly, that he was interested in harming you or your dog? Especially when he was asking, hey, please put your dog on a leash. Like, what is wrong with you? Especially when, by the way, if you remember watching that video, she was doing more harm to her dog, trying to hold the dog back by the neck. Come on, man. Come on. But look, we know why. We know why she did this. Because he's black. It's the assumptions, right? But she's, no, I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice. I don't know that as a woman alone in a park, that I had another option but to call police. That's what she said. So here's what happens. So she screws up. She threatens to call the cops on a black man for asking her to do a simple thing, right? She gets busted. She gets charged with a hate crime which was later dropped because she ended up going through some racial sensitivity classes. So much for that, right? And then decides to go on Barry Weiss's show to then triple down on the very thing that got her in trouble in the first place, which of course is saying, scary black man, I was afraid for my life. Because of course. And by the way, this is the perfect place for her to go. Because if you weren't familiar with Barry Weiss, she is literally the poster child of whining about being canceled, right? She cries about cancel culture. And so now she left the job at the New York Times, right? Because she's like, oh my God, wokeism, cancel culture, I'm going to self-cancel and write a 1,500-word screed about how terrible it is to be canceled. And then start my own crappy podcast. All right, well, again, in both cases, these white women canceled themselves and now are saying, no, what are you talking about? I'm the victim here. I'm the victim. Remember back in May, Cooper sued her former employer after she got fired, alleging that the company did not properly consider her fear for her personal safety before firing her. She also alleged in a federal complaint that Franklin Templeton, that was her former investment firm that she worked at, terminated her based on her race and gender while failing to properly investigate the incident. Now, here's what happened. You got fired and canceled for being terrible. I could understand if somebody made a mistake. I could understand, like, okay, woman alone in the park, I get it. Maybe you did fear for your safety a little bit. Now, of course, their fear was unfounded, but in the end, she made a mistake and, possibly put another person in jeopardy as a result of that mistake. I think, depending on how you react to that situation and what you do afterwards, most people would kind of be like, all right, I get it. You made a terrible mistake. You did something stupid and you put somebody in danger and you feel really bad about it, right? Because you are a woman alone in a park, and I get that, right? And look, there is implicit bias. Implicit bias is real. Implicit bias is something we all have to come to terms with, right? And realize that, of course, it's harmful to make assumptions about people due to race and sex. But this woman did not learn her lesson. She did not learn her lesson, and instead, she ended up joining a group of aggrieved conservative Karens decrying cancel culture and perpetuating harmful stereotypes against black men. You know what could have happened? She called the police. She said, a black man is threatening my life when he wasn't, very, very clearly. That man could have been shot and killed by the police. That's what would have happened. And this is at a time, of course, when a lot of headlines were being made about black men being shot and killed by the police, unarmed black men. And there's been a history in this country of situations like that happening, where white women would say, oh, I don't know, I was scared, black men, scary black men. And so the police come in, and not always the police, sometimes in the case of other white men, will go and kill this black person. As a result, this is what happens. This is why you don't call the police on black men who are minding their own business or are telling you, in this case, just to follow the rules of the park that you're in. This guy is there saying, please put your dog on a leash. It's disruptive to the park. That's why you have rules here. You should follow the rules. And she says, no, I'm not going to follow the rules. And not only that, but I'm going to accuse you of violence, of threatening me, and I'm going to put your life in danger. And then I'm going to double down. I'm going to triple down on it. And I'm going to say, no, I really was scared. I was the victim. And, that's why I shouldn't be canceled. That's why, I don't know, I should get my job back. I should do all this. I'm the real victim here. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. No, screw this Karen. 100%. Jesus. All right. moving on. We're just getting through the stories real quick today. Not sure what's gonna happen, but all right. Whoops.
There's insanity in the control room.
Emmett Till. That's exactly who I was referencing. Thank you. Oh yeah, at Alta Abstract. I'm glad you all got the reference there. All right. Yeah, Cori Bush. On Tuesday, Missouri Governor Mike Parson announced a pardon for Mark and Patricia McCloskey. Now, you might remember the McCloskeys as the people standing in their yard with pointing weapons at protesters. Black Lives Matter protesters, to be precise. So now they made national headlines, and they even got in trouble. But here comes Governor Parsons making the decision and announcing that he is going to pardon them after they had pleaded guilty to misdemeanor charges over pointing weapons at peaceful protesters. So now Mr. Parson, you're not going to be surprised, is a Republican and had promised to pardon the couple in an interview with KFTK last year, and so he had actually done that. I'm sure, of course, that will play extremely well with the vicious Republican base that thinks it's perfectly fine to aim weapons at protesters if they come into your neighborhood. That's essentially it. Oh, great. In fact, Mr. McCloskey had agreed with prosecutors earlier this year that he had, in fact, on purpose, put those protesters in danger, saying, quote, "That's what the guns were there for. And I'd do it again anytime the mob approaches me. Oh, the mob, it's the mob, it's the mob." They were passing by your house. They didn't give a damn about you to protest the Democratic mayor. Who do you think you are? What are you, Sheriff Mayo? Come on, man. But here's the thing. The protesters had a really good reason to be there, of course. It turns out the protesters were actually in more danger than the McCloskeys ever would be. The mayor, Ms. Cruson, had went on Facebook Live and had read out the names and addresses of people who had said the police should be defunded. That doesn't mean abolishing the police. That simply means redistributing some of the funding from police to community programs, okay, in order to, of course, reduce crime and therefore reduce the need for police. Nonetheless, she had read those names out, essentially doxing people. And this is right after, of course, the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. So now you dox people, what happens? Well, you put them in danger, you put them at risk of getting contacted, confronted by unhinged nut jobs and police so that they would, go to their house. So instead, these protesters went to the mayor's house. And then these people come out as they're walking by, the McCloskeys do, and just start pointing weapons at them. And not even that well. I mean, there was some serious danger of them not only shooting protesters, but also shooting themselves. Like in the foot. Ridiculous. But of course, there's been a lot of excuses for the McCloskeys. Oh, they broke a gate. The protesters did. Okay, so let's just aim guns at them. Really? No, the whole thing with the McCloskeys is there's a bunch of black people in my gated neighborhood. Let's get the rabble out of my nice gated community. How dare you even be here? How dare you even be here? That's the situation. Now, Cori Bush comes in. Cori Bush is from Missouri. And she actually took part. She was one of the protesters threatened by the McCloskeys. And so she came off from her, her win on getting an extension on the eviction moratorium by sleeping on the Capitol steps to go and talk to CNN about this. And she's going to unload on the McCloskeys and this decision. Take a look.
It is absolutely unbelievable. There are other people that there are pardons that we have been asking for, pardons that actually should happen in Missouri, and that was not one. That was not one. They stood there, they pointed their guns, totally reckless, to a group of nonviolent protesters walking down a street that had no clue that they lived there, didn't care that they lived there, didn't know them, didn't want to know them. Mark McCloskey is an absolute liar. He has spat on my name, and because of that, his day will come. You will not be successful in all that you're trying to do when you are hurting the very people that are out trying to save lives. Nothing good comes from that. He can try it, but I will not stand by and allow him or our governor to hurt the very people that are doing the work that they should be doing. So there are other people, Governor Parson, that you should be looking at.
100%. So now I love this. The response to this, by the way, was a bunch of unhinged conservatives saying, "Oh my God, Cori Bush, how dare you threaten the McCloskeys after you trespass on their yard?" Ironic, right? So now, when you look at the context, Mark McCloskey is running for political office. He's trying to replace Senator Roy Blunt. And that's what she's talking about. His day is going to come where he's not going to be successful, meaning he's not going to get political office on election day. Hopefully being defeated by the community that he apparently despises. Now remember, of course, the mob that the people that he says the mob, right, or that are the mob, that's his fellow citizens and might even be his constituents. And I just wanted to point out that context there because, again, here you have conservatives freaking out and accusing a black woman, a strong black woman, who is speaking out on behalf of her community and on behalf of activists who have yet to be pardoned, as she pointed out. She's speaking on behalf of those people, and they're like, "No, scary black woman, mob. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here." Look, Cori is right. There are much better people to pardon, but I'm guessing, of course, the governor, Mr. Parsons, only wanted to score some political points with hardcore conservatives. He didn't give a damn about the people that are suffering in Minneapolis. He only cares about it when it gets so bad. And this is where, generally you see a lot of conservatives, and also you see some Democrats as well, that they only tend to pay attention to the black community when conditions, material conditions, and economic conditions and policing conditions get so bad that it erupts into first marches, protests, and then, unfortunately, violence. Because they're not being heard or served in any other way by their representatives. Now, the people in those gated communities where the McCloskeys live, they have no idea what the average person goes through. They have no idea. Much less the average black person, what they have to deal with on an everyday basis. And of course, they don't actually care. Police brutality, it happens, economic stagnation, of course, inability to have good paying jobs, to get those good paying jobs and have a real chance at the American dream. And it's because of racist asshats like the McCloskeys. All right. Why doesn't Biden want to impeach Cuomo? I don't fucking know. As Biden. Why not get him to step down? I don't care how he gets removed. But Cuomo's got to go. So I actually agree with you. Cuomo's got to go. He's a sexual harasser. Oh, but you mean because Biden has his own sexual harassment against him? That's a good question. Hey, that's a fair question, actually. Because I also believe some of the victims, I believe the victims, the people who are alleging against Joe Biden as well. So, can't really get me on that one. All right, moving on. And by the way, some of my earlier videos, I have talked about the Tara Reade allegations. So, and I have also talked about the allegations against Cuomo, and have called for Cuomo to resign or to be impeached, or basically for him to be out of office. So you check some of that stuff out on my YouTube channel. You'll see those videos. You'll see where I stand on that. Like, I don't really care. I don't care what party you're part of. If you have these credible allegations against you, then you gotta go. A Democrat or Republican, I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm a progressive person. I believe in progressive policies. But as far as being a partisan, like, I will always defend Democrats and I will always attack Republicans. No, if Republicans do something that's not horrific or ghoulish, then yeah, I'll point that out and be like, good for them. Like, if Democrats do something terrible, of course I'm going to call them out. That's what we do on the show. So we try to be as fair as and objective as possible, while also, of course, giving my personal opinion on things, on issues. So just for those of you who are new to the channel, who don't exactly know or have watched any of my previous stuff, Cuomo hopes to ride it out until November of 2022. I've been reading things, articles where there are, and hearing that there are people inside the Cuomo administration. I think another person just resigned that's close to Cuomo in his administration. And then, of course, you have some people that are talking about doing impeachment proceedings. I don't know if that's going to happen. I hope so. Because, again, this guy... Oh, and I love this, right? Cuomo's defense, and this is ironic, he's trying to throw Biden under the bus by showing Biden pictures of Biden getting super uncomfortably close. So that's a message to the White House. Please support me. It is happening. Again, I have to confirm. I don't necessarily know, and it's hearsay, and so I'm sure all the people who are self-described Cuomo-sexuals are quietly scrubbing their tweets and timelines right now. So, just saying. That's funny. Cringe. Look, I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of Democrats that are cringe. Cringy as fuck. All right. So now let's get to the last story here. Fox News host Bob Dominic thinks the left hates you and your babies.
If you are wide awake, you understand that today's woke leftists hate many, many things. The Constitution, Donald Trump, Fox News, comedy, and of course you. But if you've ever noticed, there is really one thing that woke socialist progressives seem to hate more than anything else, and that's babies. Of course, the industrialized murder of 60 million unborn infants since Roe versus Wade is reason enough to question if when Democrats promise to take care of your children, they mean it like Mary Poppins or Tony Soprano. But even on issues less fundamental than abortion, the left doesn't just take their problems out on America's kids. Their problem seems to be that there are American kids at all. Radical environmentalists regard children as enemies of the climate. Corporate elites see babies as expensive competitors for the time, attention, and creativity of professional women, which they apparently feel should belong exclusively to them. Critical race theory con men suggest that babies become racist as early as 3 months old. New York Times columnist Paul Krugman, pictured here holding his fur baby, apparently believes the child tax credit is racist too because it's really about more white Christians. Radical feminists have built their entire brand around deprioritizing family life and shaming happy moms as sellouts to the patriarchy. I used to wonder where this weird hatred of boys and girls came from until I became a parent myself last year. And I finally realized progressives hate babies because they are crying, drooling, pooping refutations of everything woke leftists believe.
Wow. What the fuck? Look, that guy couldn't even keep it together, honestly. I saw him crack a little smile. You know why? Because he's laughing at like how ridiculous that script was. Absolutely ridiculous. What the hell was that? You know, he's wrong about leftist hating comedy because that Chiron was the most unintentionally hilarious thing I have ever seen. That's some funny shit. The leftists, they hate you and your baby. No, I don't give a shit about your baby. I don't really care. I mean, this guy sounds like a psychopath. That whole segment is nothing more than fear-mongery hate bait. And of course, it's designed that way, obviously. And of course, it doesn't have to be backed on factual information, just a bunch of buzzwords. Using abortion, of course, is a culture war issue du jour. There's no such thing, for example, as a radical environmentalist. Okay? I know. You may think, oh, radical environmentalist. What are you talking about? I've heard of a radical environmentalist. No, here's the thing. Some people, my generation and younger, are choosing to have less kids or no kids at all. Some are doing so for environmental reasons. Now, in reality, of course, 70% of emissions just come from 100 corporations. How about we start there when it comes to climate? And we have this weird thing about individualizing the actual problem of climate change, meaning like, oh, if you do this, if you have less kids, if you do that, do this, you're gonna do something about climate change. No, it's institutional. We actually have to do something on a large, grand scale to do something about climate change. But there's more, of course. Others don't want to start families because of issues like student debt, lack of childcare, low and stagnated wages, the inability to afford to buy a home. Home prices are insane. And by the way, it's not that there's no supply of homes. No, we have an amazingly large surplus of homes. It's not home building that's the problem. It's the fact that nobody can afford the prices. And it's the fact that a lot of homes are being snapped up with cash from large investment firms, many of them foreign investment firms, to come in and basically make us a nation of renters. Plus the fact that right now, children are just incredibly expensive to raise. It takes what, about $200,000 in the span of 18 years to be able to raise a child. And to have, just to give birth is anywhere between $5,000 to $11,000. And that's if there are no complications. Those are actual, real meat and potatoes issues that you could do targeted policy to fix, which would actually, ironically, encourage families. Interestingly enough, though, there's a small kernel of truth within this festering pile of shit. When he said, quote, corporate elites see babies as expensive competitors for the time, attention, and creativity of professional women, which they apparently feel should belong exclusively to them. So there's a couple of things there. Yes, that's actually true. Corporate elites do see that. By the way, did he accidentally right there also admit to sexism being rampant in the workforce? It is. Now, it's funny because socialist progressives, what we want is actually we want democracy in the workplace. That means worker owners, owner workers, etc. That's socialism, right? Then there are people who want worker co-ops that are, of course, workers that are working, that are along on the boards alongside with capital investors, right? And that's the socialists, right? And progressives, well, we want better pay. We want work to pay more, obviously, meaning, of course, you would get both men and women the choice to stay home with children. And by the way, either parent can do just fine in the caretaker role. Being a female doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a better mother, or I should say a better caretaker while your partner works. So I just want to give a shout out to the men who stay home and take care of their kids. And by the way, I just want to give a shout out to all the single parents. Male, female, doesn't matter. You do an amazing job. You balance work, chores, kids, and all that. So believe it or not, leftists, socialist progressives want people to work less. That's why you see the talk about 4-day work weeks, so that they can spend more time with families. Do you see Republicans in favor of 4-day work weeks? Do you see Republicans in favor of increasing pay? Do you see Republicans talking about pay disparity between men and women, or just workers of different parts in the company, or between the workers and the CEOs and the executives? Do you see them talking about giving mandated paid vacation days like they do in every other industrialized country, increasing family medical leave, or any of that, which is paid? No, you don't see Republicans talking about that. But what you do see is culture war. Their solutions are nothing. Their solution is to, ironically, help the corporate elites by cutting taxes on corporations and expecting it to trickle down. But there's also another goal here from conservatives, and that is to have more babies. Now, to force people to have babies, and specifically more white babies. And look, they want to, and I know it sounds insane, but there are some that talk about openly outbreeding the left. It sounds absolutely comical, insane, but in reality, there is talk on the right wing about this concept. We've heard it with Steve King, for example, who said that we can't rebuild our civilization with other people's babies. This is a guy, of course, that went over and saw the prominent white nationalist Geert Wilders. You also see it, of course, when they attack abortion rights, when they emphasize the importance of families. And understand that we believe that family is important too. But nobody should be forced to create a family. But again, on the right, on the left, we believe that you should not only have the choice to have a family, but also that economic policy should be much more family friendly, to encourage more families. But we don't believe in forcing people to have families, forcing people to have kids. With conservatives and their anti-abortion and, of course, used to be anti-contraceptive stance, and their belief that life begins at conception, which, of course, would outlaw a lot of the birth control methods that a lot of the people who still believe that life begins at conception actually take. About 99% of Catholics take some sort of birth control. Well, I mean, what you're going to do, their policy is to have people pump out as many children as possible, white children. And that is their moral imperative. Again, I think it should be your choice whether or not you want to be a parent. I'm actually pro-freedom in this regard, and policy-wise, pro-family. Now, on the right, pro-family means something completely different than that. For them, pro-family means anti-LGBT, anti-abortion. So understand, that's what you're getting. When you look at the policies of the so-called far-left socialist progressives, much more economically better for families and to encourage families and to spend time with families. What this is, and by the way, pro-workers, pro-family, pro-welfare state is pro-family. More time with your kids, less time at work. Pro-environment is pro-family. So you can actually have a place, I don't know, you can take your kid to a park because the parks will be clean. The kid will actually have, your family would actually have a clean place to live, would actually have a good climate to live in. Pro-family. What this guy is, and a lot of conservatives, is pro-birth. And mainly pro-white birth, or white conservatives. And that reason, of course, is so they can continue to dominate politically and to have political power. As one of my Twitch viewers just says, someday the United States will be majority Hispanic and the ruler of Latin America. They fear this. They do fear not being the majority race. Why? It's because, well, they've treated minority races in this country pretty bad, and they fear the same to happen to them. It is based on fear. And so, look, millennials and Gen Z are massively progressive on issues. Gen Z more so than millennials, and especially on social issues. So what these conservatives want to do is breed a new conservative generation to try to hold on to that political power. That's what's going on here, and it's really fucking weird, and it's really, it's just, it's weird. Like, stay out of our bedrooms, stay out of our lives, you weirdo. That's all I gotta say. Weirdos, weirdos. All right. I hear that over and over on right-wing TV. School is full of left-wing professors who brainwash the children of the poor. What's funny is that one of my college professors hated Obama. It was our math teacher. Or no, I'm sorry, not math teacher, economics teacher. Economics professor. And he was like, oh, Obama, terrible, he's going to crash the economy. All right, bro. All right. Sure, dude. Sure. Weirdo. It's a little bit complicated than that. It's about not just about maintaining political power. It's that hierarchies. Those at the top reflect themselves in every stage of the hierarchy. Well, I mean, they want the people in power to look like them and think like them. I'm just distilling it to the most simplest explanation. And they teach science and even critical thinking and facts. How dare they? True. By the way, thank you, new followers. Gabby Mathis, thank you for the $5. $5 super chat. I appreciate that. Let's go here and get the other super chat so I can thank the excellent person who donated. Here. Yes, Sweet Dingo 45. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, Sweet Indigo. My bad. I can't read. But thank you so much. I really do appreciate that super chat as well. So thank you so much. Let's see. All right. So that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Like and share the videos. Of course, if you've missed any part of the show, all that stuff goes to help us out. They want new Republican babies because they're losing so many because of COVID. That's another good point. But even before that, though, they were just losing people because they're generally, and I kind of have a little bit of a theory as to why many of the older generation are conservative. It's not because you get more conservative the older you get. It's because generally people who are wealthier, people who have means, which tend to be more conservative so they can save on their taxes, tend to live longer because they have better health outcomes from having health insurance. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's an idea, of course, and so that some of the more progressive younger people who don't have as many opportunities tend to die out a little sooner. That's just my little theory, and I'm sure that's not the entire picture, because there are a lot of really based older progressives, but that's my idea as to why maybe older people, the older generations, the majority tends to be more conservative. But again, I'm just shooting from the hip on that one. All right. Oh, and of course, there's the brainwashing from conservative media. There's that. All right. Anyway, thank you all. Hey, Tiffany Starr. Just wrapping it up. By the way, everybody go follow Tiffany Starr on Twitch here. That's XXX Tiffany _Star with 2 R's, XXX. So content warning on that one. It's a little spicy, but follow her. She's based. Puts out great content. All right. Thank you all. Love you, and remember, change begins with you. Night Nation. See y'all tomorrow. Have a good one.
Wet ass P-word. There's some whores in this town.
Mike Pounds.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Please clap.
Tighten up my knee.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.